Kody Brown walked into Parowan, Utah, thinking he had this whole apology thing figured out. He had already made his rounds. Janelle gave him tears and a soft landing. Christine gave him polite indifference and a husband who told him to focus on his kids instead. 2 down, 1 to go. But Meri Brown was never going to be like the others. And deep down, Kody had to know that. This was not just another stop on his carefully orchestrated redemption tour. This was 35 years of marriage. 35 years of history, heartbreak, and a slow erosion that left Meri questioning everything she once believed about love, loyalty, and family. Kody might have arrived expecting to deliver another one of his rehearsed monologues, complete with strategic pauses and carefully placed apologies, but Meri was not there to be a passive audience member. Not anymore. Sources close to the situation reveal that the energy heading into this meeting was completely different from what Kody experienced with his other exes. Janelle still carried a tenderness for what they once shared. Christine had already closed that chapter and moved on with David Woolley. But Meri carried something else entirely. Decades of frustration, years of being emotionally sidelined, and a burning need to finally be heard. What makes this confrontation so explosive is the sheer weight of what Meri endured. This is the woman Kody openly admitted he was never attracted to. The woman he legally divorced in 2014 so he could marry Robyn and adopt her children. The woman who spent over a decade hoping, waiting, and trying to earn back a love that was never really offered to her in the first place. Kody did not just break up with Meri. He psychologically dismantled her position in the family piece by piece, and now he shows up expecting gratitude for a few carefully chosen words. Insiders suggest that Meri went into this meeting fully prepared for psychological battle rather than a healing conversation. She told her closest friends beforehand that she did not even know which version of Kody would show up. The angry one? The deflecting one? The one who pretends to take accountability while simultaneously blaming everyone else? She admitted she does not know Kody anymore, and honestly, after everything he put her through, why would she? The teaser footage alone sent shockwaves through the Sister Wives fan base. Meri cutting Kody off mid-sentence. Meri raising her hand and telling him to stop right there. Meri declaring that he is not going to shut her down anymore. This was not the Meri who wept in confessionals, hoping Kody would telepathically understand her pain. This was a woman who finally found her voice, and she was ready to use it. Kody might have thought Meri would be another easy checkmark on his apology tour. He thought wrong, because when you spend 3 decades dismantling someone and then show up expecting absolution, you better come correct. And Kody Brown did not come correct. He came with the same script he used on everyone else, but that was just the beginning of his problems. Before Meri even sat down with Kody, she did something we have rarely seen from her in 20 seasons of this show. She consulted her actual support system. Not Robyn, not the family, her real friends. And that shift alone tells you everything about where Meri's head is at right now. Meri gathered with her best friend Jen Sullivan and her roommate Amber to discuss the upcoming meeting. These are the women who have been there for Meri through the darkest chapters of her post-marriage life. They watched her crumble, they helped her rebuild, and they were not about to let her walk into another Kody trap without proper armor. The conversation was revealing. Jen immediately questioned Kody's motives. She did not mince words, calling the apology a potential manipulation tactic. And honestly, can anyone blame her? This is a man who spent years publicly humiliating Meri on national television. A man who admitted he was never attracted to her. A man who told her she would have to wait at least 20 years before he would even consider working on their relationship because she had supposedly been so horrible to him. Now suddenly he wants to apologize? The timing felt suspicious to everyone in that room. What makes this moment so significant is the contrast to Meri's past behavior. For years, her primary source of relationship advice was Robyn Brown. Think about that for a second. Meri was taking counsel from the woman who benefited most from her marginalization. Robyn had every incentive to keep Meri exactly where she was, a non-threatening presence, a non-sexual, non-romantic entity to Kody. Someone who would keep funneling emotional energy and financial resources into the family while receiving nothing in return. And Meri listened to her. For years, but not anymore. Now Meri surrounds herself with people who genuinely want to see her thrive. People who challenge her when she makes excuses for Kody. People who remind her of her worth when she starts to forget. That transformation did not happen overnight. It took leaving Flagstaff. It took building a life at Lizzie's Heritage Inn. It took finally accepting that the marriage she fought so hard to save was never going to be saved because Kody never wanted to save it. Meri admitted to her friends that she does not even know what version of Kody she is going to encounter. She has seen flashes of sincerity in past conversations, but she has also experienced the whiplash of his mood swings and deflections. One moment he seems genuine. The next, he is blaming her for everything that went wrong. She told the cameras she does not know Kody anymore. That statement hits different when you realize they spent 35 years together. Her friends reinforced what Meri already suspected. This apology is not about her healing. It is about Kody controlling the narrative. And Meri walked into that meeting with her eyes wide open. But knowing the truth and experiencing Kody's manipulation in real time are two very different things. To truly understand why Kody's apology was always destined to fail with Meri, you have to understand the unique devastation she endured. This was not a relationship that simply fizzled out like his partnership with Janelle. This was not a marriage where someone found the strength to walk away like Christine did. Meri's situation was something far more insidious, a slow, methodical erosion of her self-worth that lasted well over a decade. Meri was Kody's first wife. His original, the woman who stood beside him when they built this entire plural family from the ground up. She was there when Janelle came into the picture in 1993. She was there when Christine joined the family. And she was there when Robyn arrived in 2010 and everything started to unravel. But somewhere along the way, Kody stopped seeing Meri as a partner. He started seeing her as a problem. The legal divorce in 2014 was the first major public humiliation. Kody claimed it was purely logistical, a way to legally marry Robyn so he could adopt her 3 children from a previous marriage, but Sister Wives fans saw the cracks forming long before the paperwork was signed. Meri wept through confessionals. She begged for scraps of attention. She watched Robyn receive everything she had been denied for years, and Kody expected her to smile through it all for the cameras. Then came the catfishing scandal in 2015. Meri connected online with someone she believed was a man named Sam Cooper. She sought emotional connection outside her marriage because she was starving for affection inside it. When the relationship was exposed as a scam orchestrated by a woman named Jackie Overton, Kody weaponized it against Meri for years. He used that emotional affair as justification for his continued neglect. Never mind that Meri was vulnerable precisely because Kody had abandoned her emotionally long before she ever searched for connection elsewhere. Reports surfaced that Kody once told Meri she would have to wait at least 20 years before he would even consider fixing their marriage. 20 years. Because according to him, she had been really horrible to him. The audacity of that statement still shocks fans to this day. Here was a man who openly admitted on camera that he was not attracted to his first wife. A man who later claimed he never truly loved her. And somehow Meri was the one who needed to prove herself worthy of reconciliation. Meri lived what she herself called a sacred loneliness at the hands of her husband. She stayed loyal to a man who made it abundantly clear he did not want her. She defended him publicly while he destroyed her privately. She held on to hope long after hope made any logical sense. And now Kody shows up with a rehearsed apology and expects what exactly? Gratitude? Forgiveness? A clean slate? The wounds Kody inflicted on Meri cannot be healed by words. They require acknowledgement he has never been willing to give. And that acknowledgement was about to be tested. The moment Kody sat down across from Meri, he launched into the same script he had been running all month. The same carefully rehearsed lines, the same strategic vulnerability, the same attempt to position himself as the magnanimous forgiver, rather than the man who actually caused all the damage. But Meri was not Janelle, and she certainly was not Christine. She was not going to let him monologue his way to absolution. Kody started with what he probably thought was a gracious opening. He told Meri he wanted her more than anything to just be able to move on. He framed it as a gift he was giving her. Permission to heal, freedom to let go. As if Meri had been sitting around waiting for Kody Brown to grant her emotional liberation. The arrogance was staggering, but it was about to get worse. Meri responded quickly. She told him she had moved on, she was doing fine, she had built a life without him. But Kody could not leave it there. He had to poke, he had to push, he had to find a way to make himself the victim, even in the middle of his own apology tour, and that is when he crossed the line. Kody brought up Meri's friends. He said the way they talk about him suggests she has not really moved on at all. He used her support system against her, the people who helped her survive his years of neglect and emotional abandonment. He tried to weaponize her friendships as evidence that she was somehow still obsessed with him. The audacity was breathtaking. Meri's hand went up immediately. She told him to stop right there. The temperature in the room shifted instantly. This was not going to be the passive reception Kody expected. Meri made it crystal clear that if he did not want to fight, he needed to leave her friends out of his mouth. She was not playing, she was not backing down, and she was definitely not going to let him attack the people who actually showed up for her when he refused to. Kody tried to redirect. He insisted he was just there to apologize. He claimed he did not want to argue, but the damage was already done. He had revealed his true intentions within the first few minutes of the conversation. This was never about making amends with Mary. This was about Kody trying to control how people perceive him. And when Mary's friends refused to play along with his redemption narrative, he lashed out. In his confessional, Kody admitted his first mistake was suggesting Mary did anything wrong. He acknowledged that he was triggering in the moment. He told himself to just stay on point and apologize again. But even his own self-reflection exposed the problem. He was not sorry for what he did. He was frustrated that his apology was not being received the way he wanted. And that frustration was about to boil over. This was the moment Sister Wives fans have been waiting years to witness. Mary Brown, the woman who spent decades swallowing her pain and defending a man who gave her nothing in return, finally stood up and spoke her truth directly to Kody's face. And it was everything viewers hoped it would be. When Kody tried to interject and steer the conversation back to his rehearsed apology, Mary shut him down cold. She looked at him and delivered the words that will echo through Sister Wives history. "You are not going to shut me down anymore." The weight of that statement cannot be overstated. This was not a social media post. This was not a confessional filmed separately. This was Mary saying those words directly to Kody while sitting across from him. For 35 years, Mary had been silenced, dismissed, emotionally sidelined. She watched Kody give Robyn everything while offering her scraps. She listened to him publicly declare he was never attracted to her. She endured him claiming he never truly loved her. She sat through years of being blamed for the catfishing scandal when his neglect drove her to seek connection elsewhere. And through all of it, when they were face to face, she remained conciliatory. She softened her approach. She protected his ego even when he was destroying hers. Not this time. This time, Mary came prepared to hold her ground. She told Kody that if the conversation continued in that direction, she would walk away. She made it clear that attacks on her or her best friend would be met with attacks right back. She established boundaries that she had never been willing to enforce before. And watching Kody's reaction made it clear he had no idea how to handle this version of Mary. In his confessional, Kody revealed just how rattled he was. He admitted he was triggering during the conversation. He described an internal dialogue where he was telling himself to stay on point and just keep apologizing. He claimed it is hard to hate someone who says sorry 100 times. But that statement exposed everything wrong with his approach. Kody believed the sheer volume of apologies should override the need for actual accountability. He thought if he said the words enough times, Mary would eventually accept them regardless of whether his behavior matched. Mary saw right through it. She told the cameras that if the conversation was going to continue like that, she was not going to engage. She was done being Kody's emotional punching bag, done being the wife he neglected while expecting her gratitude, done pretending his hollow words meant anything when his actions told a completely different story. The confrontation was everything fans predicted, and more. Mary finally found her voice after decades of silence. She reclaimed her power in a moment that felt almost cathartic to watch. But this was only one piece of a much larger puzzle, because Kody's apology tour was never really about the women he hurt. If you step back and look at Kody's apology tour as a whole, a disturbing pattern emerges. This was never about healing the women he damaged. This was never about taking genuine accountability for decades of manipulation and neglect. This was about one thing and one thing only. Kody Brown wanted to control the narrative. And when you view the tour through that lens, everything suddenly makes sense. With Janelle, Kody found exactly what he was looking for: a soft landing. Their shared history created enough goodwill that his apology landed without significant resistance. Janelle even admitted she bore some responsibility for focusing on the family more than their individual relationship. She gave Kody the grace he desperately wanted. Mission accomplished. Checkbox marked. Moving on. With Christine, the dynamic shifted completely. She sat there happily remarried to David Woolley, a man who shows up for her, a man who treats her children as his own. Kody's attempt to set her free was laughable because Christine set herself free years ago. She received his apology with the exact level of sincerity he delivered it with, which is to say, very little. She humored him because it cost her nothing. She had already moved on entirely. But with Mary, the playbook fell apart. She was not giving him a soft landing. She was not politely indifferent. She was angry, guarded, ready to fight, and Kody had no idea how to handle it because his entire approach depended on the women receiving his apology the way he wanted them to receive it. Reports from those analyzing his behavior point to textbook patterns. Kody focused primarily on his own feelings throughout the tour. He positioned the apologies as magnanimous gifts he was bestowing upon others. He told Christine he wanted to apologize so she could heal and move on, completely ignoring that she was sitting right next to her new husband, having clearly already done both. both. The apologies were never about them, they were always about him. This is what makes Mary's confrontation so important. She refused to play along with his script. She called out his ulterior motives. Her friends had already warned her this was likely a manipulation tactic, and Kody proved them right within minutes. He attacked her support system. He tried to redirect when challenged. He prioritized getting his words out over actually listening to anything Mary had to say. Kody even admitted in a confessional that he wanted these women to stop thinking, talking, and being about him. That was the real goal. Silence the critics. Rehabilitate the brand. Get everyone to move on so he can stop being the villain of this story. But genuine accountability does not work that way. You cannot apologize your way out of decades of damage while simultaneously refusing to change a single thing about your behavior. Mary understood this. She knew exactly what Kody was doing, and she was not about to let him succeed. But there was another person watching this tour very closely with entirely different concerns. While Kody was busy touring the country delivering hollow apologies, Robyn Brown was sitting at home having what can only be described as a slow-motion emotional crisis. And her reaction to this entire situation reveals far more about the Brown family dynamics than anything Kody said during his so-called redemption tour. When Kody first told Robyn about his plans to apologize to his ex-wives, her response was telling. She did not encourage him. She did not celebrate his growth. Instead, she immediately started validating his past anger. She told him not to be too hard on himself for being hurt. She reminded him that his feelings were justified. In other words, Robyn was already working to undermine the very accountability Kody claimed he wanted to take. But the most revealing moment came when a producer asked Robyn a simple question. How would she react if one of the ex-wives wanted to come back to the family? Robyn completely fell apart. She stumbled over her words. She became visibly emotional. She said the question opened a little portal of hope and then immediately warned that hope was dangerous. She admitted that if she even thought about it, she would fall apart. Think about what that reaction really means. Robyn has positioned herself as the loyal wife who stayed when everyone else left. Her entire identity within this family is built on being the one Kody truly loves, the one he chose, the winner of a competition the other wives never even knew they were participating in. But if Kody's apologies are genuine, if he truly takes accountability for how he treated Mary, Janelle, and Christine, then Robyn's narrative starts to crumble. Sources close to the family suggest Robyn needs people to believe Kody genuinely loved all his wives, but simply loved her more. That framing makes her special. That framing justifies the favoritism everyone witnessed for over a decade. But if Kody admits he was wrong, if he acknowledges that his treatment of the other women was abusive and neglectful, then Robyn becomes complicit rather than victorious. She stood by and watched. She benefited from their suffering. She got the bigger house, the better treatment, the lion's share of his time and attention, while 3 other women starved for scraps. Robyn's fear of the ex-wives returning is not about wanting the family back together. It is about protecting her position. She cannot handle the idea of Kody genuinely reconciling with these women because reconciliation requires him to admit how badly he treated them. And if he treated them badly, what does that say about Robyn's role in enabling that treatment? Fans have spent years calling for a Robyn apology tour. They want her to own her part in the family's destruction. They want accountability for the favoritism, the manipulation, the way she allegedly alienated her children from their half-siblings. But Robyn remains insulated in her mansion while Kody does all the heavy lifting. And that tells you everything about who really runs this relationship. Before Kody even made it to Mary, he received a reality check so brutal it still echoes through the Sister Wives fan base. And it did not come from one of his ex-wives, it came from the man who replaced him in Christine's life. David Woolley looked Kody directly in the eyes and said the words everyone had been screaming at their televisions for years. Start with your kids. The moment happened during Kody's apology dinner with Christine. David had been invited out of respect for Christine's new marriage. He sat there quietly while Kody delivered his rehearsed lines about wanting Christine to heal and move on. But when David saw an opening, he took it. He asked if he could offer a little bit of advice, and then he dropped the bomb that completely derailed Kody's carefully constructed narrative. David pointed out that the women had already moved on. Christine was happily remarried. Janelle was building her own life. Mary had her bed and breakfast and her friends. The ex-wives were not the ones who needed Kody's attention. But the children still needed to heal. David sees those kids regularly. He watches them hurt. He witnesses firsthand the damage Kody's absence has caused. And he was not about to let Kody pat himself on the back for apologizing to adults while completely ignoring the kids he abandoned. Kody's reaction was immediate and defensive. He insisted his whole purpose was to apologize to Christine, not to receive parenting advice. He claimed he had already already set boundaries with his kids and was setting those same boundaries with David and Christine. He refused to hear what David was actually saying because hearing it would require him to acknowledge his biggest failure. The estrangement between Kody and his children is staggering. Janelle has publicly stated he is alienated from 90 to 95% of his kids. Leon Brown broke their social media silence just to call Kody a liar and a joke of a father. They revealed Kody had not reached out since Garrison's funeral in March 2024. Multiple children have spoken about the trauma of growing up with Kody's favoritism toward Robyn's kids while they were left behind. But Kody refuses to take sole responsibility. He told David those deteriorations happened as a party, not as an individual. He continues to blame the divorces for his estrangement from his children, even though the timeline does not support that excuse. The kids started pulling away during the pandemic when Kody's strict rules applied to everyone except Robyn's household. They watched him prioritize one family while abandoning the others, and now he wants to pretend the divorces caused the rift? David did not regret speaking up. He told cameras he sees those kids hurting and hopes Kody reaches out on their terms, not just his own. That distinction matters. Kody wants reconciliation that serves him. The children need healing that serves them. And until Kody understands that difference, no apology tour will fix what is truly broken. By the time Meri sat down across from Kody, she had already done the mental preparation most people skip. She consulted her friends, she processed her expectations, she examined her own boundaries, and she arrived at a conclusion that fundamentally changed how she approached this entire conversation. Meri knew this apology was never about her. It was always about Kody. In her confessional, Meri laid it out plainly. She questioned whether Kody had an ulterior motive, and then she answered her own question. Because it is Kody, of course he does. That level of clarity did not come easily. It took years of disappointment, years of hoping he would change only to watch him double down on his worst instincts, years of defending him publicly while he destroyed her privately. But Meri finally reached the point where she could see him for exactly who he is. Before the meeting, Meri revealed something that shocked even longtime viewers. The last time she saw Kody at Coyote Pass during the property signing, they did not even look at each other. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Nothing. After 35 years of marriage, they had become complete strangers sitting in separate cars while signing away the last physical connection to their shared history. And now suddenly, Kody wanted to apologize? Meri went into the conversation with what she called very strong boundaries. She explicitly told her friends that Kody's energy messes with her energy. It just does. That awareness is crucial. Meri recognized that even being in the same room with Kody could destabilize her emotionally. He has that effect on her after decades of manipulation. So she prepared herself to walk away if necessary. She promised herself she would not engage if things escalated beyond what she could handle. She also made one thing crystal clear. If Kody attacked her or her best friend Jen, she would attack right back. No more turning the other cheek. No more absorbing his criticism in silence. No more protecting his ego at the expense of her own well-being. This version of Meri came ready to fight if fighting became necessary. What makes this so powerful is the contrast to who Meri used to be. For years, she was the wife who cried in confessionals hoping Kody would somehow understand her pain without her having to express it directly. She was the woman who stayed loyal even when loyalty made no logical sense. She was the one who kept trying to earn back love from a man who admitted on camera he was never attracted to her. But that Meri is gone. The woman who showed up to meet Kody in Utah had spent years rebuilding herself away from his influence. She found her voice through her friendships with Jen and Amber. She found her independence through her business. She found her strength through finally accepting that Kody was never going to change. And armed with that knowledge, she was ready to deliver a message years in the making. Kody Brown's apology tour was always destined to crash and burn the moment he sat down with Meri, not because she is unreasonable, not because she is bitter, but because Meri is the one woman who understood exactly what this tour was really about, and she refused to give him what he came for. Kody did not travel to Utah seeking forgiveness. He traveled there seeking silence. He wanted Meri to accept his apology so she would stop talking about him, stop letting her friends talk about him, stop being a living reminder of his failures as a husband. He wanted to close this chapter on his terms so he could move forward without the weight of accountability dragging behind him. But Meri had other plans. By standing up for herself in that conversation, Meri did something far more important than rejecting a hollow apology. She reclaimed her own narrative. For 35 years, her story was written by Kody. She was the first wife who got pushed aside, the woman who was not attractive enough, the one who got catfished because she was desperate for attention. Kody controlled how people saw her by controlling how he treated her, but not anymore. When Meri told Kody he was not going to shut her down anymore, She was speaking to more than just that moment. She was speaking to every moment over 3 decades where she swallowed her pain to keep the peace. Every confessional where she cried alone. Every dinner table where she sat ignored while Robyn received all the attention. Every holiday, every anniversary, every ordinary day where Kody made her feel invisible. She was done being silent about all of it. Mary's confrontation was never about getting a sincere apology because she knew that was impossible. Kody is not capable of the self-reflection required for genuine accountability. He proved that throughout this entire tour, he blamed the divorces for his estrangement from his kids. He attacked Mary's friends within minutes of sitting down. He positioned himself as the victim even while allegedly taking responsibility. The pattern never changes because Kody never changes. But Mary changed, that is what matters. The woman who walked into that meeting was not the same woman who spent years eating Kody's garbage hoping for a smile. She was stronger, more self-aware, surrounded by people who actually love her. She has her business, her friends, and according to reports, a new boyfriend named Ron. She met at a speed dating event. Her life is finally her own. Kody's apology tour failed its final test because it was never built on genuine remorse. It was built on self-interest. And Mary saw right through it from the very beginning. She gave him nothing. No absolution, no closure, no permission to rewrite history. Just the truth delivered directly to his face after 35 years of waiting. So what do you think? Did Mary finally get the moment she deserved? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't want to miss what is coming next.